Welcome to the Emerging Professional series at the Coffee Conversation Show, powered by the Emerging India Forum TIF and a tech partner, Prime Infotech Solution. Theme is the future of HR from strategy to impact. We have with us Rajiv Naithani, Senior Vice President HR and OD at Persistent Systems, Pune. With a remarkable career spanning industry giants like Persistent, Infogain, Dassault, Global Logic, Rajiv has built a reputation for driving transformational change in workplace, a champion for the employee first philosophy. He believes that organizations thrive when they put their people at the center of their strategies. From leading global HR teams to shaping high performance cultures, his impact is evident in the organization he's been part of. He's also an academic and industry influencer, a thought leader in the HR space, and a passionate advocate for employee well being. Today, we dive deep into the evolving role of HR in 2025, leadership in a digital world, and the future of work. So, welcome, Rajiv, to today's coffee conversation.
Thank you so much, Amir, for having me here. We're excited to talk to you and the
Yeah.
coffee.
So let
Really.
me explain you the flow. It will be divided into three parts: professional journey round, the personal journey round, and a surprise rapid fire round, for which you have to be
Sure.
witty, fun, and quick. And here's inspiration from niche marketing, which can be applicable to HR also, and it will be autographed and sent to you. But first, you
Okay.
have to win it, and I know you will do it. Okay. So, friends, I'm Lion Amir Virani, host at Coffee Conversation and legal tech evangelist at Prime Infotech Solution, author of 15 books. We help law firms, corporate legal startup SMEs with world class technology, software licensing, and tech training solutions. So, my first question, Rajiv, what inspired you to pursue a career in HR and leadership development, and how has it been till date?
To be honest, Amir, I didn't have a clear plan to pursue HR in the beginning. During my college days, I was at a stage in life where I was trying to figure out what would be the right path for me. And I come from a background where there was not enough of guidance made available to us, and that led us to find our own path and navigate through the journey to figure out what is the right thing to do. Especially, the path one from practical standpoint, given the family background and constraints around that, and the meaningful path from a long-run perspective. So I remember having a deeply honest conversation with one of my best professors at Delhi University. Her name is Dr. Manju Alamwadi. So ma'am didn't tell me what to do. I actually asked her, ma'am, I want to talk to you. I really need some guidance because you look up to certain people, right? And you, at that stage, when you're in your teens, you want to figure out some guidance from someone who you have high and immense regard for. And then, so she really spent time with me. And instead of telling me a prescriptive thing, she asked me kind of questions that helped me think clearly. She was curious enough to understand my context, my background, my family context, my responsibilities, and all that conversation really did wonders for me. It helped me reflect on what really mattered for me at that point in time. And that conversation brought a lot of clarity and helped me take the right decision. And that direction eventually led me to HR. So I didn't choose it. It really happened through that reflection process. And over the years, if I look back, I've come to realize that most fulfilling part of this journey is the impact we make in the lives of people. I feel truly
Yes.
blessed when people come back sometimes even years later and say, thank you for making that impact in my life. Thank you for holding that conversation, which really brought clarity for me. And these are the moments that stay with me. They touch me deeply and remind me why I chose this profession. For me, HR has always been about enabling people, not just through systems or structures, but through presence, through listening, through care, and just being with people. That's the journey so far, Abhay.
Beautiful. So let's dive deep into the conversation, Rajiv. The concept of HR as a business enabler has gained traction. How can HR leaders balance strategic business growth with employee well being?
So I think it's a very good question because for me, it's never been either or, right? So business outcomes and employee well-being are not competing priorities. They're deeply interconnected, right? And what matters is finding the right balance depending on the context, the business maturity, the context of the organization, and most importantly, the values you operate with. And I have personally always believed that HR needs to bring both the lenses to the table, a strong business acumen and deep understanding of people. If you go with either, it doesn't help. So both are important, and our credibility as HR leader comes from being able to influence decisions that drive performance while ensuring empathy and fairness. You don't compromise that, right? So I remember a moment during the early phase of pandemic in my previous organization. There was a pressure like everywhere else. We had a pressure to preserve cash, to optimize cost, and ensure that you do everything possible from an employee well-being perspective. And there were certain perspectives we were looking at, and some of those seemed logical choices. But as management team, we took a conscious stand. We didn't want to pursue what appeared to be the obvious financial decision if it came at the cost of our people. Instead, we found a more balanced path, one that aligned with our values and took into account of business needs and people outcomes. And that decision was really lauded by everybody, starting from the board, members to the employees. And the outcome was even more meaningful because with the efforts and efforts of everyone and also the performance which we delivered, our employees ended up receiving a higher payout than they would have originally hoped for. So that experience really reminds me that strategic HR is about belief building. It's about showing people that in the moments of pressure, we won't just fall back on logic. We'll stand up for what's right, and that's the trust. It creates performance, and that goes beyond numbers and value.
Wow. So, Raju, you have been played different organizations' role at different levels. So, what are the key elements for an HR leader with having stakeholders of a company organization?
Say that again, the last point. What are the
key elements an HR a leader should have with the management and the different stakeholders?
it's
Good
from a
relation. Key elements for having a good relation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. From a relationship perspective with the stakeholders or the key stakeholders in the business context, uh, your credibility is most important, right? Because ultimately, what you're doing, you're building connections and networks, and those need to be credible. And that happens when you deliver on your commitments, when you're being who you are, when you say when you do what you say. So those perspectives become very, very important. And at the same time, these days, being hands-on leadership or being hands-on is also very important in my view because the credibility also has the relevance from the space of function you come from and how hands-on you are when you're holding these with different stakeholders from an organizational standpoint. So that's how I see it actually.
Wow. Okay. Rajiv, mergers and acquisitions bring cultural integration challenges. From your experience, what are the key HR strategies to ensure a smooth transition? I'm dividing into two parts. Uh, that is international. There's M&A is happening, and within and अपना ये at Indian companies, it is happening from uh, ये different cities. Team members will be there will be changes because they come from different cities. So how ye strategies are there for smooth transition where there is cultural from international side and now within India?
So I'll actually
Question I'm giving to
second
Rajiv.
part, then I'll get into the larger part of M&A integration. So absolutely, when you're looking at any M&A integration, you need to keep the local element in mind, right? There's a global context of organization, there's a localization context of the organization as well because of the culture differentiation. So you can't keep your eyes shut from that standpoint. You can't say that, okay, we have one template and that will be replicated across all the locations. That doesn't work. So that's a starting acknowledgement to the second part of it. Let me actually give you a broader perspective to the original question you asked or the first part of your question. The way I look at M&A and culture integration, it's not about one company being absorbed into another. It's actually about two cultures, two legacies, and two sets of people that coming together and building something stronger. Because ultimately, you have bought an organization for some purpose, right? And that bond has to happen in a stronger way. And fortunately, I have had the opportunity to lead several integration efforts over the years. There's so many companies have acquired and managed the integration around that. In fact, in my immediate last assignment, I had the additional responsibility of managing the entire due diligence program management of the acquisition also. So one important principle which I hold very close to me is there is no upper hand or lower hand. It's not about the acquiring company integrating the acquired one. It's actually about both sides integrating with each other. If you start with that mindset, you already eliminate us versus them, right? Because that silently derails the trust. People say, oh, they are doing this versus us feeling this way. And at the same time, what's equally important is creating a space for joint ownership and decisions. So when you're removing those feeling of one side dominating the other. So you need to bring people together. You need to ensure that everybody understands the larger perspective and picture, and then helping towards making the right decision from that standpoint. And another thing I've learned is to be mindful of the insecurities that can surface during integration on both sides.
Yes.
It's human.
Yes.
People want to know where they belong in the new structure, whether they will have a voice, and if there is a ways of working will be if their ways of working will be respected, right? You need to acknowledge and build communication flows that ease those anxiety. And finally, never forget the importance of localization. As I initially talked about, you may have unified vision and global standards, but culture isn't a copy paste. You have to respect and retain what's unique in each team, geography and legacy. In fact, most of the times when I manage the integration, I used to tell them, my company it's reverse. Okay. Your company is not becoming my company. My company is also becoming your company. That's kind of
Yes.
message I always deliver on day one of acquisition integration, whenever we went live from that perspective. So that's my response on it.
That's beautiful. So when I'm just creating a question, depending on sorry on a conversation building up. When uh, the legal team or the stakeholders come to the HR, okay, this company is being bought over. Uh, so, what are your preparation steps? Begins, and what kind of questions you put forward to the management before you actually go to the HR person of that organization and start the integration process.
It's a very reactive. If I respond the same way as you are, it's a very reactive approach for me. I'll tell you the way I manage this. So,
Yeah,
as an
please.
organization, when we are looking for assets to be acquired, my response is based on my past experience. I'm not responding on behalf of my current organization. It's from a past experience perspective. I joined this company only 3 months back, so I'm being very mindful of being very credible and contextual also from a past experience standpoint. So when we used to go for making acquisitions, so we would look at. So first question we always answer for ourselves is what is the objective of our M&A? Is it for scale? Is it for competencies, capabilities, or it's for geography extension? And based on that, we will decide what kind of assets we need to really go after and what would be the ticket size in terms of revenue, etc. for them. And that at the ENT level, you all are part of the game. You all are part of the same discussion and you understand what is our inorganic growth strategy from an organizational standpoint. And thereafter, you will have assets, you will review them through banker process, through references, and so on and so forth, and through sometimes through your private equity channel perspective. And once you find that one of the asset is looking promising, at that point in time, you'll start to have management conversations, start to see what are the synergy in and out opportunities. And if you make further progress from that standpoint, then you start to understand next steps of the organization from a capability, GTM, culture, and various others. And that's the stage when someone from HR should also be part of that in the in the pre-integration, pre-acquisition process of due diligence. And that stage is very important. It's not about involving HR only after the acquisition is made. So you need to have a due diligence, you need to have a go no go kind of decision made basis that. And once you are very close, there's exclusivity, there is a commercial thing, there are various due diligence which are indicating go, no go. And if it is go, then what is going to be your day one and day zero, day 7, day 30, day 90? You build those plans, and then huge amount of activities will be carried out in accordance to the nature of acquisition and also the way you want to integrate them. If you want to integrate them sooner than later, then you will have a fast track integration plan in place. You want to give them a brand identity for longer term, then you'll have a different plan. So that's how I manage and led different acquisitions in the past.
Thank you for adding depth to this conversation. I'm planning a panel fireside chat with you and M&A lawyer. You both,
That would be
uh,
fun.
it will be a lovely and see. I know you have got a lot of experience what you have added. This is the first time I've had a lot of conversation with M&A lawyers, transaction based and everything, and yes, culture they see and everything. But from HR, it will be lovely to see about what each one is contributing to, and it was
Yeah,
an eye opener for both sides to focus on. Okay, by how to start and integration part so that smoothness goes on. That was very beautiful, Kibai, what you're focusing on. Kibai, we
thank
are one entity. That message has to go from day one. That is what
you.
beautiful you put across. So let's dive. There's another question which is also very equally important. Diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) have been a major global HR trends. What are some practical ways leaders can move beyond policies and create a truly inclusive work environment?
See, to be honest, DI is not something that can be achieved through policies alone, right? Uh, the real success of any inclusive organization lies in the behaviors we demonstrate every day, especially as
Hmm.
leaders, right? And those behaviors are heavily influenced and often inspired by the top leadership, because if the top leadership uh, demonstrate specific behaviors, those will have a cascading impact, right? If leaders themselves are not convinced about importance of inclusion and you have a policy in place, do you think it will work? It won't work,
Hmm.
right? It will become a checklist. And it becomes very difficult, it will become very difficult to drive meaningful change. And I've seen this in my own experience. Even with the best interventions and well-intentioned programs, inclusion did not take root unless leadership was really committed and really believed in it. And that's why I always say it starts with the mindset. As a leadership team, we need to be clear that we are pushing DI. We are not pushing DI as an isolated initiative. Instead, we must create space to understand all perspectives, right? Even in the meeting room, for example, as a leader, am I actually paying attention to every expressed views? What is my own behavior there? Am I listening? Am I being welcoming? Right. So don't push a top-down narrative without listening from that perspective. And at the same time, you need to hold up the mirror, use data, employ voices, live experiences to bring awareness to reflect and make course corrections. In fact, I remember, there was a conversation we were having in my past experience where in the room we were talking about something, and I said that whatever you're saying is it's a good 30,000 foot view. Do we really know what happens on the ground? Right. So the listening part is very important and not assuming that what we think is a right thing. And from that perspective, ensuring that we demonstrate those behaviors, we really believe in it, and bring in systematic policy changes where, and that you can bring when you have mirror reflection. The data is a good mirror reflection. It tells you who you are, what you're doing, and basis that takes required actions. Make it part of the culture, sustainable culture way of improving diversity, and not just from one dimension, but from all major dimensions. That's how I see it, Amit.
Thank you. So, as I introduce you during introduction, you have been a strong advocate of the employee first culture. In an era where remote and hybrid work models are evolving, how can companies maintain the employee centric approach, Rajiv?
See, for me, employee first is not about slogan, right? It's about mindset. And
Yes.
I feel personally fortunate that in my first career journey, I had the opportunity to work with leaders like Vinit Nair, who's pioneered, who wrote this book, Employee First as well, right? And the culture he built kind of inspired me as well. And that was my formative years of, initial part of my formative years of career journey to learn all that. To me, it's about creating a culture where people feel trusted, empowered, and connected to purpose, regardless of where they come from, right? And since your question is from a hybrid perspective, remote perspective, and looking at employee first from that point of view, I think I personally believe in the idea of radical flexibility, not just in terms of when or where people work, but in trusting them with how they get to outcomes.
Yes.
Flexibility, radical flexibility with the ownership of outcomes and responsibility and accountability around that is a key enabler, and they both need to go hand in hand. And if you anchor your culture on clarity of expectations, autonomy, and trust in people's intent, you can absolutely sustain an employee-first environment, even in hybrid and remote environment. And another thing which is a truth and which is a real important thing is I've consistently seen this is the real enabler of culture in a distributed model, whether it's a hybrid or a multi-geography base, that person is a line manager. The manager becomes a bridge between the organization and the individual. And when people are not physically present, their experience of the organization is shaped almost entirely by how the manager shows up in different interactions, right? Even how they listen, how they connect, how they support. So from that perspective, if you really want to keep the culture alive and human in hybrid and remote models, invest in your managers, equip them to be empathetic,
Mm.
present and people focused, because that's the culture you live in everyday moments, not just from a big event perspective.
Wow, beautiful. So, Rajiv, with Gen Z and millennials dominating the workforce, what leadership and talent retention strategies do you think will define the future of work?
You see, what I've seen with Gen Z and millennials is that they're not just looking for jobs, they're looking for meaning, growth, experiences that align with their values and expectations. Titles or compensation are important, but alone won't hold them because they want to feel they want to feel heard, they want to feel empowered, they want to be part of something that matters. And in the previous context, when I talked about radical flexibility, right? You need to, if they need that radical flexibility, uh, you need to give them that with the accountability and responsibility on the delivered outcomes, right? And that's where they value autonomy and want to be treated as individuals who can own their own path. But yeah, at the same time, they need to own accountability and responsibility also. I'll actually make it more personalized. I remember a conversation with a leader from one of the past organizations who was frustrated with a fresher for resisting reskilling. And he came and he said, this guy has a lot of attitude. We should actually ask this person to go if this person is not willing, etc., etc. Right? And the leader came from Gen X. Uh, so when we spoke to the employee shared that he had been candid about the skill track he wanted to pursue since beginning. And it's not about being difficult, it's just being clear. And that's a difference actually, right? So when I started my career as Gen Y, we used to adjust. We would never complain. We would never say that, okay, I have this clarity. We'll say, oh, I need to learn. So we need to appreciate that difference, right? Probably the current generation is much more clear. They have better perspective. And this generation, in my view, is more intentional. They expect to be heard and not just managed. They value transparency, purpose, growth on their own terms, and they want to explore, not just move up, but across. So, from that standpoint, I think we need to be much more resilient as
Mhm.
multi generations, especially in the leadership roles, and see that how do we make it work from a coexistence perspective. At the same time, sometimes the counseling is also essential. Some people could be unreasonable as well, and everybody needs to operate in some boundaries and structures. And within that, look for the opportunities of creating flexibility, providing avenues to be heard without being judgmental. So that's the way you can actually lead this in life.
Wow. So, Rajiv, you have worked with both established corporations and high growth organizations. How does HR strategy differ between the two?
See, in my because you rightly capture that I had the opportunity of working with all sorts of organizations, venture capitalists, early stage, not early stage, but founder-driven company getting into venture capitalist space, private equity, listed organization, larger enterprise organization. And in my experience, the core intent in all of them is the growth mindset. And that doesn't really change whether it's established or a corporation or a high growth organization. What changes is the muscle you have to execute the growth. Larger, more mature organizations have stronger structures and deeper benches, right? And more defined playbooks. Whereas high growth setups, on the other hand, they may rely on pace, improvisation, adaptability, and they will have a larger dependency on the individuals as well. Another key difference is around failure tolerance. In founder-led environments, especially in the early phase, there's a higher emotional ownership, right? So failure can be personal, and that can make risk-taking harder unless there is a strong trust. Whereas in a private equity companies, the pressure is more around speed and outcomes because the life cycle is shorter, right? Within 5 years, they want to exit, so they need to see the organization is moving very faster. Whereas when you look at the listed organizations, they tend to approach growth with more discipline, governance, and reputational sensitivity, which often makes them more methodical, but also more resilient in the face of failures. So, from a HR strategy standpoint, it's less about better or worse. It's more about the context because we, as HR professionals or HR leaders, we always operate in the context. In a high speed or high growth setups, we need to lead with agility, fast cycle feedback, and immediate people value, right? That's what is expected. That's the context. But on the other hand, in a mature setup, it's about scale, it's about sustainability, it's about strengthening the cultural alignment across layers. So what matters in both is staying close to the business and the people and constantly adapting to the strategy where the company is right now and where the playbook is going to be taking us to. That's the context in my view, which should be the playbook for HR professionals as well.
Wow. So, Rajiv, the global talent war is more competitive than ever. How can organizations stand out in employer branding and talent acquisition?
Okay, I actually tell people that when I was in the initial stage of my career, when you start employer branding, when you look at, I don't know if you would remember, and you would, we had Ascent career sections in ST and Ascent in Times of India, and we would look at, which company has given an advertisement about them, and, we would actually define the organization brand basis those, and then we started to see those billboards also on the road and expressway, etc. But that used to be the employer brand. But then, with the advent of social media, we started to see that it's no longer employer branding; it is actually about talent branding. Now, talent branding is the real credible branding of the company because what's happening is people of the company bases their experiences which is giving them either emotional satisfaction or cognitive satisfaction. They're reflecting their experiences and expressing that and making it available to the rest of the world. So it has become so easy yet challenging for the organization. But in the hindsight, it's a good proposition because now companies look at branding as well as employee life cycle journey very closely. And I think that that's a beautiful change which happened over a period of time where employee experience, talent branding, or talent experience, everything go hand in hand. And that's shaping it differently in my view.
Wow, beautiful. So, Rajiv, how did your speaker journey started and how has it been?
Speaker journey.
Yeah.
It's very interesting story, and you're asking a very reflective question. It was in 2010. I was I was given a promotion to director title. I was in my 20s still, and I had a very fast, accelerated career journey in terms of moving roles and levels. And I was wondering how, you're in late 20s, becoming director, youngest director in the company. All of the directors, the youngest probably at that point in time would have been in 40s. And I wanted to really challenge myself and see if I would be equally successful outside. Because I used to have different conversations with my manager that why are you promoting me? And my manager would tell me that these are the reasons you deserved it, you earned it. You're not my relative. We are not doing any favor to you. All that conversation used to happen. But on a serious note, I really want to validate if I really have the thought leadership as well. Is it that we have a frog in the well story? Is it that limited to that context, or is it really across? And that's where I started to challenge myself, and I started to uh, go beyond my those boundaries of organization and started to participate and started to share my thought leadership outside. Unfortunately, the journey has been very, very uh, insightful, very, very promising, and very helpful at the same time because it helped me become a better person in the process. And also it helped me enhance my perspectives as well. Because initially, those initial days, before going for any session, I would prepare for long hours. I would actually probably go to bed at 2 a.m. in the morning just because I had to speak next morning in some forum. Because you shape your experience. It's like making yourself skilled and you practice a lot, and practice is the key then. Now today I can just walk in and have conversation with you, for example. That's a journey I covered over a period of time, but that's how it happened. A lot of efforts were put in, and in the process I learned a lot as well because you just can't go and just talk about anything without having knowledge or experience about it. So that's the story behind me getting into this space.
Wow, beautiful. So, Rajiv, you have received various accolades. How does it add value to your career?
It always good to be recognized, right? Each one of us like to be recognized. It would be unfair if any of us say, irrespective of what role we are, that we don't like recognition. But recognition is good. I think I see that as a moment of pause. When you get recognized, you need to take a moment of pause and reflect about that recognition and give a pat on your back and then move on. Because what defined us in the past or what efforts we had put in the past contributed us to get recognized at that stage. But if I continue to do the same thing, I won't get recognized in future, which means I need to remain relevant all the time. And so recognition is a good tool. It's a good validation of the efforts you have put in the past, but that doesn't define your future trajectory and future success. So you need to keep challenging yourself, keep evolving yourself, keep looking at the mirror and asking one standard question: are you relevant for today? And if the answer is yes, ask the second question: are you relevant for the future? And that will help you evolve yourself further. So, I mean, like longer question answer, but that's how I feel.
Wow. So, Rajiv, AI is impacting all industries. So, my question is related to that in HR. With AI-driven HR solution becoming mainstream in 2025, how do you see technology shaping HR decision making using AI?
There's no doubt that AI is bringing tremendous value to HR. And I've personally experienced how powerful it can be, giving us insights we never had before, helping us see patterns across engagement, performance, retention, and even potential. So it really enables us to be proactive and support the business and our people and make the right decisions. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge that when it comes to people, not everything can be processed through logic. Human behavior is layered. It's emotional,
Mhm.
psychological, and situational at the same time, right? And you can't always capture that through data models. That's where the judgment plays crucial role. I've been in situations where decisions made purely based on logic and that didn't land well. And they lacked because they lacked empathy, and those conversations often with colleagues from more logic and good functions needed someone to bring the human perspective. And I don't want to kind of reveal certain things. But in my previous role, I used to have some difficult conversation with different stakeholders because logic and balance of logic with people, emotion, psychology would always have a different notion, right? So when you do that and only go with the logical perspective, you slow down and look at, and hence you need to look at the situation with empathy, context, quality of decision making will change and evolve basis that. Yes, of course, AI is a game changer, but it needs to be guided by empathy. For me, the real value lies in combining insight, which comes from the technology, whether it's AI enabled, GI enabled, whatever that be, we need to combine that insight with instinct. So it's data with judgment and always keeping the human at the center of it all. That's how I see it.
Wow, beautiful. Okay. So Rajiv, what's one HR myth you think needs to be debunked in 2025?
Okay, that's very interesting and very reflective question. So I think there could be more, but if I were to limit to one, uh, which keep coming across is that HR is not really a strategic or business function, and that our role is mostly about support execution. And I think it's time we completely let go of that mindset. In every transformation I've been part of, whether it's a scaling a fast-growing business, driving post M&A integration, or reshaping culture, the success of that change has always come down to how well we manage the people side of it. And that's where HR plays a central role, right? When you look at it from OD lens, because I get biased with the OD thing also because I bring a lot of OD into the HR. And when we look at it from a OD lens, change does not happen just because we shift org structures or redefine strategy. The real transformation sticks when people, systems, and processes move together. And that requires thoughtful change management. HR is the custodian of that journey. So for me, HR is not just strategy, it's it is at the heart of how organization evolve and grow. And the sooner we stop seeing it as a back office function, the more value we will unlock, not just for people, but for the business as well. That's the answer from me.
Wow. So my last question for your professional journey around, Rajiv.
Mhm.
Uh, you give, if you could give one piece of career advice to young professionals aspiring to enter HR leadership roles, what would it be?
Yeah, I think not just for HR, but any profession for that matter. When you come out of your academic journey, you have acquired good enough knowledge. And what's important for you is to now apply that knowledge so that you become skilled, right? Now, the formative years of career are very critical, very important in everyone's life, which means that during initial formative years, your one objective and the only sole objective should be that you want to build your foundation very strong. Because ultimately, what's happening? It's imagine a building. If you are looking at that building as your career journey, whether it's a 24, 20 years, 25 floors, 45 years, or 30 years, 30 floors kind of building setup you're looking at of your trajectory, what is it standing on? It's standing on the foundation. If the foundation would be weak, the tall building will collapse. And I've personally seen people who are highly knowledgeable, and I would have looked up to them to acquire knowledge and gain perspectives, but they fell through the cracks because their foundations were not very strong, and also they didn't carry the enabling attitude. So initial years of your career and life, please engage yourself into the learning context only. Build your foundation strong. Forget about the title, compensation, various other fancy things. All of it will come automatically. The moment you build the foundation strong, you will become employable and everybody will come after you. They would like to have a talent like you. And that's the advice, only one advice I will give because I had personally experienced it and that shaped my career in the right trajectory as well. So foundation years, the key years.
Wow, beautiful. So let's go to next round, Rajiv, and understand you as a person. Tell us about your family and your formative years.
Uh, so I come from Padi Garhwal in Uttarakhand. So it's a middle Himalayan belt. And to me, the way I look up this place is it's a grounded location. The life is tough. People are very hardworking. There's so much of simplicity. And there's so much of value system which actually comes with that location. And my upbringing and my even coming from that location itself shaped a lot of who I am. While when I was 4 years old, we moved and relocated, we kind of migrated to Delhi, and my education, everything happened in Delhi NCR itself. But the coming from that route has always kind of shaped me. I carry that Himalayan sense of humility, resilience, and rootedness with me even today. My parents also instilled the importance of education, hard work, and integrity. But more than anything else, they taught me the value of being kind and curious. And that foundation helped me navigate every stage of my life with balance and perspective. That's how I would look back my journey and the roots I come from.
Wow. So, who has been your biggest cheerleader from your family and friends?
I think everybody. I can't just name one, and it would be unfair because I get immense love, affection, appreciation, acknowledgement from every single person, starting from my parents to my spouse to my children, my siblings, my extended family. God has been very kind. I always got a lot of love from people around me.
Wow, beautiful. So, let's go maybe down the lane, your days at University of Success. Uh, what are your experience and how did it impact your career?
My experience in which context? I mean, my experience in what context you're asking, which is
Means, what are your experience, your memories at University of Sussex, and how did it impact your career?
oh, University of Sussex. Sorry. Okay, so I'm a lifelong learner. I must tell you this. I've been studying, learning all the time. One thing which has always shaped me is single mantra. If I were to tell you, I don't know, and that makes me much more open and curious to learn, and that led me to get into this University of Sussex learning program as well. One positive, if at all, I want to talk about of pandemic is because of pandemic, this program became virtual. Otherwise, it used to be in-person Connect program in London, and that would have been a disaster for me to really get into. I would have not managed it, both from cost as well as availability perspective. So this online journey of 2 years, master's program, really came as a great opportunity for me. The few things which I admire about this journey is I'm already an OD professional, so I got into much more deeper aspects of looking at OD from a different lens standpoint, not just from diagnostic, but a lot of dialogic intervention based as well. The second thing was my cohort was truly global cohort. I was the only Indian in that, right? And I had people from across Europe, few people spread like me from different part of the world, Australia to Middle East to Singapore and few other locations. So that global cohort brought in a lot of different learning dimensions from group behaviors, group processes, cultural context, and that was great learning again for me. Third was since it was a master's program from University of Sussex, it was very research focused. I had to really challenge myself. There was a moment when I felt I should withdraw myself because I was struggling. And I really had a conversation, honest conversation with the program director. And program director, I really admire that lady. She encouraged me not to do it. She motivated me to complete my research, and I was able to do it successfully. And hence, I can proudly look back and say that, oh, I had wonderful 2 years journey through University of Sussex on this management program.
Wow, beautiful. So, Rajiv, what's that hobby or creative pursuit that helps you recharge, energize?
I believe in a holistic four pillars of my existence. One is physical well-being. So I engage myself into sports, fitness. I'm a yoga enthusiast. I do cycling. I've done difficult cycling expeditions as well. Something like there are to Denalti at high elevation and back, and a few others like that. I can play sports, uh, and physical well-being is one element of my pillar, which defines me holistically. Second is the intellectual well-being, where I talked about being a lifelong learner, the mantra of I don't know. I heavily invest on my learning on basis the 70-20-10 formula. So 10% learning investment is part of my life. It's something which I live, which means that I spend my money, my time, my efforts to ensure that I'm learning something. The third pillar is emotional intelligence. I've gone into emotional intelligence in a deeper way to evolve myself to become a better human being. Um, for me, anything which goes wrong in the relationship, all fingers are on me. because I am responsible for my relationship with people. So emotional well-being, emotion, and also the ontology kind of shaped me in a different way when I got into that journey, that what emotional well-being is. And the fourth is spiritual well-being. There's a long story there. Maybe some other day I'll talk about my spiritual quotient and how did I get associated to some organization, went deeper into that. So my holistic thing is these four. So beyond work,
Wow.
this is what defines me.
So you're leading me to my next question. You have also been actively involved in the NGO space. What role does philanthropy play in your life? That's my first question. And then later, one more question is there related uh, to. I'll just combine, you can then combine both together. How do you see corporate social responsibility evolving in 2025? And how does your uh, role as a philanthropist add to the CSR role at the corporate world?
So, my journey into giving back, I won't call myself philanthropist, I'll not call myself somebody who's really very deep into social cause, but my journey started with the fact that in Himalayan belt where I come from, there's so much of contribution we could make because the life is very tough there. I see children waking up even much before the sun rises and they start their journey to the school, climb mountains and reach school maybe after a few hours. Uh, and they need real support. So, my objective with the like-minded people was to contribute back into the state and see people help in their education journey. And we started to do some real good work there in terms of sponsoring some of the schools and also kids there. And in the process, we expanded our role of creating more self-help group and also working with some of the villages to see if we could be of any help to them. But all that was it with the intent in mind that we want to do some meaningful. It's like drop in the ocean, right? So that kind of impact we wanted to create, and that has been on with highs and lows perspective. But when I look at that and attach or link it with the corporate social responsibilities from a corporate standpoint, I see that the CSR is very passionate topic. It has to come from within. If you really want to contribute in whatever capacity, you need to feel it. You just can't write a check and say that okay, we are contributing it. And that's where the corporate, ever since we have this companies that mandate around CSR budget, etc. Companies that have been very focused in driving the corporate social impact in different lives of people. And that's where I see a lot of employees finding the purpose and also contributing. So it is not so much to do with the NGOs driving it. It is also an opportunity for our employees to engage with them because people are really looking to contribute. They need those revenues because they don't have their own resources to carry it out. So they see the organization thing as a platform where they could contribute and make those meaningful impact in the lives of people. Unfortunately, I'm seeing over a period of time because I've been observing it that in different places, different capacity, people's lives have been meaningfully impacted through these initiatives, whether it is in the education space or a food nutrition space or healthcare space or various others, upliftment of different marginalized sections and even genders from that perspective. So I see a lot of potential and that will continue. And I think more like-minded people should come forward and be part of these initiatives in whatever organizations they work with.
Wow, beautiful. So, Rajesh, if your friends had to describe you in three words, what would it be?
Oh God, I need to really. Uh, so I think you know I'll actually I don't know how different people will say, but if I were to summarize my own thing around this question, I'll say I'll be called as a grounded Himalayan soul on a lifelong journey to enable people to lead change with agility and care and stay endlessly curious to learn and grow. That's how I would actually define it, define it, so to say.
So, what's one book or movie that has inspired or impacted your life?
I think there's no one in particular, but there's so many. Particularly, I like books which are on self-help or which are on going beyond the conscious mindsets. For example, Alchemist was one book which I really enjoyed. Secret is another book which I enjoyed. There's Siddharth, which I enjoyed a lot. There is Jonathan on the Seagull. That story was that book was very good. Um, and even the Monday Morning Leadership. There are many actually, because every book gives you something. And in my view, the self-development and self-reflection is the key of bringing about change. Because as leaders, the first step for you is leading self. And very rarely we spend time on it, right? We always spend time in leading business and leading others. And maybe we want to manage others than leading them, right? So there's a big difference between the two. But leading self is the starting point. And so any book which helps me become effective as an individual, as a person, as a leader, I really love those.
Wow. Good. So, suppose Rajiv, you had 1 week away from work, away from dealing with people, leaders. What would you like to do and why?
So I'll definitely. I'm a more of a. I, I have a magnetic thing with the mountains. If I have a choice, I always go to the mountains and hills. But of course, yes, with my family, with my kids, that's the best time I think I can spend. I like to explore places, so keep going different places with them and exploring. That would be the thing I would do.
So, which one? Which mountainous area?
So naturally, Uttarakhand comes to my mind always, but then that doesn't limit my perspective. It could be any other elsewhere. It could be Kashmir, why
Wow.
the place, not the preferred place to go because of the tension, or it could be outside of India, Switzerland, and then various other places.
Wow. So, my last two, no, sorry, uh, last question is more of reflective. What legacy would you like to leave behind?
Yeah, when I look back, the day when I would want to move out of my career journey, the only thing that day I will not be defined by what transformation I drove for the organization, how many promotions did I earn in the process, how many recognitions did I earn, or how the company transformed from a revenue perspective from different scales. The only legacy would be that what impact was I able to create in the lives of individuals. And listening to people telling me that, oh, that conversation we had did spark this in me, or that conversation really brought clarity in my mind about myself or my situation, or that your time really helped me define the moment of life for me. So those kind of things would really be the moment of pride for me, and would be the legacy for me. That's how I look back and
Wow.
feel good about
Beautiful. So, let's go to next round and have some fun, the rapid fire round.
it.
Your go
Okay.
to comfort food, Rajiv.
I mean, you'll have to say it again. I can hear you.
Your go to comfort food.
Comfort food. Oh, anything which my mom cooks is my comfort food.
Wow. Okay. One book every HR leader should read.
One book. So that's very profound question. I think I would not say only one. They should read them. All the books,
Yeah. You
of
can
all
give your
kinds of books.
recommendations. You can give your recommendation for HR leader.
Okay, I'm finding it very difficult to say one book at this moment. Yeah, but they should definitely read books on self-help, whether it's as I was talking about. Uh, Alchemist is good book. They should read Monday Morning Leadership because it really helps
Mhm.
to drive change in the behaviors of leadership. The coaching element comes to play in that. They should read some of the OD books because that as HR sometimes they become very tactical in their functioning. So some of the OD concept books they should read so they become much more uh, widen the thinking and perspective of diagnosing to dialogically of driving the change in the organization perspective. So
Wow.
different dimension will have a different book in my mind. I wish
Beautiful.
I would someday put a list of that and possibly share it.
Okay. Your favorite color?
All colors are my favorite. I don't have any specific liking for a particular color.
Wow. Your dream travel place?
Dream travel place. Wow. Maybe Mars.
A quote that keeps you motivated?
A quote. God is watching everything.
Wow. Your favorite movie?
Honestly, I don't have any favorite movie.
A
But yeah,
skill that. Sorry.
I like some. So Chuck Day definitely was one movie which I saw twice in the theater, which doesn't
Wow.
with me otherwise. So
A skill that every HR leader must have?
empathy,
Wow. Uh, Tea or coffee to recharge?
coffee.
You're on the coffee show.
I am a coffee person. So I'll remove the.
So you did well.
Thank you.
Here's a book, which will be autographed and sent to you, Rajiv. So,
Thank
friend, it
you.
was a lovely conversation having with Rajiv. How he's divided his aspects when I asked him the question of hobby into different aspects of life. That was very beautiful. That segments and contributing to the Himalayan areas, that is keeping his roots alive. That is also very beautiful. So this episode is for every individual out there to keep to your roots. It's about all those HR professionals and HR leaders. This is the episode. Please watch as you'll get a lot of insights on HR, on leadership development. And he's an expert into integrating team from different cultures in an M&A deal related to HR. I learned a lot from him because I have had various conversations with M&A lawyers where they look for the financial thing, the transaction still, but then the HR person comes in the picture, integrating and making it as one entity, one unit, oneness, which an HR plays, and that was what Rajiv brings to the table of oneness. That was very beautifully put across. So, like this, there are 450 coffee speakers who bring to the table their insights, their journeys, personal, professional, their subject expertise. If you want to feature like Rajiv, visit our website, the Emerging Me Forum or LinkedIn page, or connect with our 450 speakers, put in a word to them to let recommend to Team Coffee to invite you to coffee conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amit, for the opportunity. I appreciate that.
Thank you.